What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bridge to Self. I'm your host, Ben Arthur. So today I wanted to break down what it means to be a second generation Black immigrant. I'm realizing that there is a lot of confusion about what exactly is second generation, even among immigrants and immigrant children themselves, as well as I do understand that there is an audience for this show that isn't Black, let alone a Black immigrant. So there is a lot of curiosity on their end about kind of the topics and different ideas discussed on this show. So I wanted this episode to be sort of a high level summary and breakdown of all that. So to kind of start off, just to define some terms: first generation, second generation, and 1.5 generation. So if you are a first generation immigrant, it means you were born abroad, but you immigrated to the US. Second generation is folks like me. You were born in the US, but have at least one foreign-born parent. So I was born here. My parents were born and raised in Ghana, and they came here. So I'm Ghanaian American. I'm second generation. I've seen a lot of second generation folks saying that they're first generation, right? Like if their family's from Cameroon or whatever, but they were born in the US, they'll say, oh yeah, I'm a first generation Cameroonian immigrant. That is not correct. You are second generation. You're the first generation to grow up in the US, right? So I'm not taking that away, but you are by definition a second generation immigrant. And then there's 1.5 generation, which isn't as well known. Basically, it means you were born abroad, like the first generation, but you immigrated when you were a child. So I think the cutoff is like 11 or 12 years old. So like if you were born in Nigeria, but came here when you were 8 years old, you're considered a 1.5 generation immigrant. So now to kind of give a breakdown of the second generation Black population by the numbers, right? Like how big is this population exactly? And to help me, I have 4 different credible resources online that I use to get data from. So the American Immigration Council, the Harvard Immigration Initiative, and the Pew Research Center, and the Migration Policy Institute. As of 2022, so this is 3 years as of recording. That was 3 years ago as of recording. 1 in 10 Black people in the US are immigrants. So at the time data was collected, that was 4.3 million people. Another tenth of Black people in the US have at least one foreign-born parent. So that's the second generation. You take second generation Black immigrants and first generation Black immigrants, that is 20% of Black America. Some other information for you guys: the African-born Black population in the US grew to nearly 250% in the 20-year period from the year 2000 to 2019, and the Black immigrant population is projected to double by 2060. So case in point, this is not a fringe group. This may seem like a bit of a niche podcast idea, but this isn't a niche population by any means. This is a substantial part of Black America. This is a group shaping the future of Black America and really America as a whole, right? We know how diverse America is. We know how much of an impact and influence that Black people have on culture here. So the second generation Black folks are playing a massive role in the present and what will continue to do so moving forward. And now to break down a bit how the second generation Black experience diverges a bit from the first generation Black immigrant and the African American, those who've had generations of their family born and raised in the US. Specifically in the second generation Black experience, you're bouncing back and forth between the Black immigrant world and the Black American world. So I think a great way to explain this will be just discussing my own background, right, as a second generation Ghanaian. So having Ghanaian parents at home, I very much felt Ghanaian, felt African in the sense of the foods I was eating, the music I was listening to, the culture I was immersed in, whether it was the parties, the functions. There was a Ghanaian community in Seattle that my family was very tapped into. It was the language I heard spoken at home, whether it was between my parents or to family and friends over the phone. It was kind of how our house was set up in terms of the different artwork and wood carvings and stuff like that. Very much felt Ghanaian at home in that sense. But then I step outside of the home and I'm Black in America, so to speak, because the world around me is perceiving me as just a Black person in the US. So that comes with all different kinds of experiences and maybe stereotypes or challenges in terms of, oh, you're an athlete, you play basketball, you play football. So that's kind of like the stereotypical side of it. There's the whole navigating the police thing. There's considering how you navigate corporate America. There's a huge emphasis on kind of racial identity, and which is different from the Black immigrant perspective, in that at least with African immigrants, like my parents, they're coming from a country that's like all Black, right? They don't necessarily look at race the same way that Black people born and raised in America look at race. For Africans, a lot of folks in the Caribbean, the differentiator is different, maybe cultures and traditions, language, tribes, so to speak. But in America, it's all about race and like being a Black person who does this, a Black person to do that, the first Black person to do this. So that's a big part of it. As a second generation Black person entering the world, like outside of the home, that's what you're navigating, right? And then it's also the understanding that you don't have the same historical context as Black Americans, right? Your family hasn't been here for generations. You maybe don't have the same generational trauma, generational experiences that their family, their bloodline has had on US soil. And so your perspective on a lot of issues ranging from income inequality to immigration to different kinds of things can be vastly different. So that's kind of how it's different, right? And then in terms of the difference from the Black immigrant as a second generation Black immigrant, you don't have the same context as them either, because you didn't grow up in the family's country, right? You're coming up in the US, you're getting maybe indoctrinated to a degree with American ideals. So there can be a disconnect in that regard because you didn't grow up the same as your parents. So that's kind of what the second generation Black experience can be, right? You're code switching between worlds, navigating expectations between worlds. You're not 100% in either world. You're somewhere in between. It's somewhat nuanced, right? There can be an identity crisis is a part of it. There's the whole challenges of assimilation, like how much of my parents' culture, my family's culture do I need to maintain while at the same time getting indoctrinated with American culture, like that balance, that give and take. All of these things are battles, experiences, situations that second generation Black folks have to deal with. And that's kind of the reason for the podcast. So I hope this was helpful for all of you listening, whether you are second generation like me or just a fan of the show who like to hear these stories and want to kind of engage and learn more about these topics. I'm going to continue to elevate these personal stories, what I feel are untold, and going to continue to grow and appreciate, as always, the support. But yeah, you guys know the deal. Every other Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Time. So until next time, I'll see you guys soon. All right. Peace out.